things started. I'm sure there'll still be people coming in as we get going, but that's fine. As I said before, my name's Justin Brocky. I'm the Chief Operating Officer here at Therap. And what we're going to do today is, and you know, some of you may have heard some of this previously, and it'll be a bit of a repetition, and it'll obviously be new to some of you as well. Give you just like a little bit of an introduction to who we are here at Therap, and then sort of walk through as much of the process as we can of what EVV is going to look like in South Dakota next year. Don't have every single question answered yet, so there will be a few wait and sees or a few we're figuring it out, because there's some stuff we've not quite defined and some questions we've not quite answered, but we'll be getting there as we go through. So we at Therap are an online documentation system. We grew up in the developmental disability world, and a lot of the DD providers in South Dakota have used us for quite some time, and we have a contract with the DD side of the state of South Dakota as well. But we've been brought in by the LTSS folks to initially to meet the federal requirements around EVV, that is electronic visit verification, and we'll talk a lot more about that today. And then also to become the case management system for the LTSS program. So we'll touch on that a little bit, but I think the big focus for today is going to be on the EVV side of things. Again, Therap has been around doing this for about 15 years, and you know, probably for 13 of those we've been in South Dakota, starting in Spearfish, and then eventually kind of getting pretty much all the way over the state. We are software as a service, so that means basically all you need to do to get to us is have a browser. You know, if you've got something that'll run a browser, you'll be able to use Therap. We'll get to using phones and devices and how that's impacted with how that works with any computer or tablet is going to do it just fine. And the joy of that is, you know, you can be anywhere and use Therap, whether that's your staff being out and about and using Therap, or that's you know, either in your office or at your home, because we're all doing 24-hour stuff these days. Wherever you are, as long as you know your login credentials, you'll be able to get into Therap. We work basically all over the country. We have folks in every state in the union, though we're pretty new to the sort of LTSS and aging side of things. As I say, our primary experience has been in DD, so we're really excited about what's going on in South Dakota, and we're learning a lot of stuff as we go along. So we're always open for feedback and suggestions and things like that. As you know, software as a service and sort of kind of cloud-based. Certainly we are cloud-based to you, but the difference between some cloud software and us is your data, which we're looking after for you, we're looking after that on our hardware. So we've got data centers where we keep all these stuff, and the people who look after that hardware and replace things as they break and upgrade things and do that, that's all Therap staff. So it's our equipment that this is running on, and we take a long time working with that and making it very, very available. You know, we rarely have unintended downtime, and if we're doing maintenance and stuff like that, we try to keep that to the small hours of the night on weekends whenever we possibly can. So that all of that stuff should be transparent to you. But again, we're doing a lot of work in the background, putting all that together. And we've even got a bunch of patents out there on the stuff that we do, particularly around sharing. One of the things that we're very big on is that whole sort of transparency, and hopefully as this implementation goes further and further in South Dakota, it's really gonna help you and your case managers and the people you provide services to, and potentially even their families, and all of that communicate that much better. That really, we find that communication around the support that you're providing can be a really, really good thing. Other thing that we pride ourselves in, along with having what we think is a pretty cool application, is having some great support. So you're going to get to meet a bunch of us. As you may even have spoken to us or met some of us already, and if you haven't, you'll probably be hearing from us in the near future, as we're calling around to make sure we know who's going to be dealing with the application at your agency. So you'll, in particularly, if you see our state team over here, in particular, you're gonna meet Tracy and Shirley and Josh and Jeff, or myself, are the folks that you're most likely to meet on the ground there in South Dakota. But again, we may well, particularly when we're at those big training things, where we've got to, when we've decided what the go live date is and we're getting everybody up and running, and there's always a bit of panic and all of that, we'll be bringing in extra hands to make sure that you get all the training and you get all the support that you need to get up and running and make this successful. So what I would like to do, and again, any of the folks from the state that want to jump in and interrupt me or correct me as I go through, please do feel free to, is give you a sort of quick guided tour of how Therap works and what this is going to sort of look like. It's not all done yet. There's some interesting bits of work still going on at the moment. So some of it's going to be an approximation to what it's actually going to look like, and some of it I'm going to show you some things in in PowerPoint slides and pieces like that. It's difficult for me to share my phone screen over the GoToWebinar thing. I can do it over GoToMeeting, but not over GoToWebinar. So we'll do that and take you through how the scheduling and the EVV piece is going to work. We'll talk a little bit about how billing will work as well. We'll touch on that. We'll probably come back in a little while once we've got all of this, our ducks completely in a row on the billing side, and do an even more in-depth session like this where we walk you through that end of the thing. I'm going to focus a little bit more on the scheduling and the EVV piece, which is sort of the upfront. So what I'm going to do is I am going to show you my calendar because you need to see that. There we go. I'm going to bring up this, and I'll make it bigger in a second so that you can see it. And this is just sort of, and we've almost got this to the place where we'll actually share it out with you, so you can go through and look at it, and there's bits that you can click on to see more detail. But the overall workflow is here, and I think it's quite handy to sort of walk through this. And I'm walking through this based on the fact, as it were, that you're doing everything in Therap. I know some of you have got your own tools, your own EVV tools on site and maybe using that, but then the state is probably going to ask you to do your billing through us, and we'll touch on that when we get there. But for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to assume that you're doing everything with us. So number one is you will all have your own Therap accounts. You will have a Therap provider account at each one of your agencies. Again, where you are an agency that's spread out across multiple offices in South Dakota, part of what we do when we talk to you and we get you all set up is we'll discuss with you how you're organized internally. You might be 2 or 3 separate accounts, or you just might be one account, and then you can do those divisions internally within Therap. And I'll probably give you a couple of little examples of that later on. But that's, you guys are sort of down here, okay, as the providers. Up at the top here is where the state central office folks are, and we call that the oversight account, and it does just that. It's got some functionality there for intake and eligibility and all of that stuff, and it sort of connects everybody together. And from there, that's where your case managers are going to be putting together their plans of care and sending you your service authorizations. So your service authorization is going to, and your plan of care are going to come to you via Therap. Okay, so and again, we'll show you that when we get there. What the service auth allows you to do, so the service authorization, as you know, is going to tell you what each person is, what services they're supposed to receive, and how much of that service they're allowed to get. And you are then going to schedule your staff to provide those services and put that inside Therap. And it's that schedule then that your staff are going to work to and are going to check in and out of. So you'll put through the scheduling on the calendar. Then when your staff go and actually provide the service, that's what they're going to check in and check out for. And again, we'll show you that. Based on that data, so you went to provide an hour of service, so you checked in at 10 o'clock and you checked out at 11 o'clock. We can take that start time and that end time and convert that into units. Let's say there were 15-minute units. We know that's 4 units. We know what the rounding rules are and all of that. So we can take that EVV data that we've got, and from
Justin?
Okay, just one moment, everyone. And it looks like Justin has lost audio, and we'll just have him back here in just a moment.
Okay, let's try that again. I do apologize. I'm in a hotel, and my hotel internet obviously wasn't doing well enough to get you the audio that you needed. Hopefully you guys can hear me just fine now. Okay, so thanks, Leslie. Okay. Where did you lose me? What was I talking about when I got cut off?
The data going to claims.
Okay, all right. So it wasn't too much. Okay, that's good. That's good. All right. So we will then put that data into the claims, and then well, actually, this is going to be one of the things that you really like about this is not only will we send the claims that are going to the MMIS, but the claims that are going to state accounting, we'll send them as well. So we'll deal with them electronically. Basically, you won't really need to worry about is this service going to MMIS or is it going to state accounting? You'll just submit the claim, because when the service authorization was created by the case manager, then they identified what the funding source was. Therefore, we're going to send that claim to the right place based on that funding source. So your whole billing process should get an awful lot easier. Again, if you're somewhere and the state has said it's okay for you to use your own EVV thing, we've got other mechanisms for you collecting that billing data, which we haven't. I'll probably give you maybe an example of that, but those are some decisions that we still to make in consultation with the state as to which options we'll have available for you. For the claims that are going to the MMIS, we will also get back from them the 835, so that adjudication, and you'll be able to see the adjudication of that claim inside Therap. I don't believe that happens with the state accounting ones, but if there's any way we can get some reporting on what's been paid and what hasn't, then we'll work that out for you. So that's sort of the general flow of things. And again, when we get this completely tidied up, we'll give it to you. And it's nice because you'll also see a bunch of little screenshots of how all of this stuff works that you can go and take a look at as well. So we'll get this diagram out and made available to you just as soon as we've got it tidied up. Where you will be able to find that is on our website, which is therapservices.net. So again, if you're looking for more information about what we do, this is a great place to come to. And as we move through, we'll be putting much more stuff and much more information up on the South Dakota page here. So you'll be able to go there and get much more information and support materials and things like that. And that will continue to grow over time. All right. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to go and log in to Therap itself. So you would get to our login page by just clicking on this secure login link up at the top of the website. And what for the purposes of today, I'm going to be logging into a demonstration account. So completely fictitious data about, but it's the real system, and it basically works the same way as it will for you when you do it. So I'm going to start. What I'm going to start off with is in what we call that oversight account. So this is a place where state folks would work and where your case managers would work and things like that. Now, when we log in, like I just logged in there, I'll make that a bit bigger for you. The system knows who I am, okay? And it's really important. We don't charge per user. Not that we're going to be charging you guys at all because the state's paying for this, but we don't charge by user anyway. So you should never, ever be sharing accounts. that's really, really important. Because we need to know who that is. That's how we protect for HIPAA and all of that stuff. So each person has their own login, and based on that login, the system knows what they're allowed to do. And that's sort of done two ways. The first is a caseload. So everybody has a caseload. You might have a caseload which is all the people that your agency provides services to. We tend to use the word individual. So all your individuals. You might just have a caseload of a few folks that you work with. Case manager would have their caseload. Some of the folks in central office are going to have a caseload that's the entirety of South Dakota. Again, if you've got different offices across the state, you might have, a caseload which is all the people that you support out of your Chamberlain office, and another one for all the people you support out of your Sioux Falls office, or something like that. Basically, it's just a list of individuals. And then the other thing is a thing we call a super role. And a super role is just a collection of capabilities. It says, what are you allowed to see in what modules? And what are you allowed to do with that data? And based on that, the system is going to conform itself to what you're allowed to do. Now, I'm logged in an account where I can do basically everything, which makes it easier for doing demonstrations. It does make the screens look a little more complicated. You're going to have, particularly to start off with, only a few links on your screen because you're only going to be doing little bits and pieces. Again, hopefully over time, we're going to find more and more useful things that you can be doing in Therap. But it's up here, and I'm going to just only be in this account really very, very briefly at the moment, but this is where your case managers are going to put together their plan of care, and it's going to look somewhat like this. There's going to be some differences, but basically it is going to say what the service is, who the provider is. So in this case, it's my demo provider 1, and then it's going to say how much of this service can get. This person's allowed to get 20 units a week, is allowed to get 10 units a month, whatever the rules are for that service. So the case manager will go and put together all the different services that are required for that person, and then when they or their supervisor, depending on the workflow, have finished that and approve it, that is automatically going to send out all the service authorizations to the appropriate provider. So you could have somebody who's receiving different services from different providers, and all the service auths are going to go out electronically in Therap to the appropriate provider. Okay, so what we'll do now is change my browser, and we'll go and log in as a provider, as one of you guys. Okay, so I've now logged in, and again, I'm logged in as somebody who has sort of every privilege I could have. But if I go over and look on my to-do list, okay, one of the roles I have is the service authorization recipient role, and you obviously would decide who is it at your agency, and it could be multiple people, who is going to be in charge of looking at those service authorizations when they come in and doing what we call acknowledging them. So this is telling me here that I've got 2 service authorizations waiting for me to acknowledge. So I'm going to click on that number 2, and I'm going to get a list of those, and I can see the pending acknowledgement. Okay, so I'm going to open this one up, and I'm going to see a bunch of information about that service authorization. I will probably have some options here as to what certain things that I may choose to do with this service auth. For you, it's most likely to be which program would you like to put it in? And that, again, the program might be where you choose to divide up your agencies. So again, you might have 3 offices, so you've got a program for each office. You may say, where is that data coming from? So is that data coming from your EVV, or is it coming from one of our other data sources? And there may be other little bits there. But once you've gone through and you acknowledge that, okay, what that is going to do in your system is over on the billing side of what we do, that is going to create what we call your billing service authorization. So this is, if I go and find the one that we got done from there we go, that one. So this service authorization has within it all the information that we're going to need to be able to both manage the scheduling of this service and the billing of this service. So we know how many units you've got to provide of this. We know the diagnoses that it's going to be built on. We'll know where the data is coming from, and we know things like the rounding rules associated with it. So all of that will be pre-populated for you based on what was sent to you by your case manager. Okay, so very, very little manual work required from you thus far. Okay, you've just gone in and you said, yep, that's the service auth. Maybe again made a couple of choices about how you want to implement it, and now you're ready to go from here. Okay, so now that we have the service authorizations in there, now what we want to do is we want to schedule your staff to go out there and provide those services. Okay, and there's a little bit of setup that goes along with that. So if I come down here, there's some configuration that you can do here, and there will probably be more options that we add. In fact, I know there will be, because we've got a couple of releases coming out in the next month or two, which are going to have more of the functionality, which I'll show you in some PowerPoint slides, and that will include some extra options in here. But again, this is just you getting the system to work the way you want it to work for you. This web check-in enabled, that would be something if you wanted somebody to be able to check in and out from the browser here. I suspect you won't want to do that. I'm gonna leave it checked here because it'll be a useful way for me to show you something later on, but you probably won't have that allowed. And again, don't worry, particularly at this stage, about remembering almost any of this, because when it comes time to get you set up to do this, we will walk you through that. We will have very definitive guidance, and we will walk you through that either over the phone or sometimes even in person. We'll come out and do it in person. So don't sort of panic that if you think I'm going through this too quickly, you've got to remember it all. We will give you more than enough training as we go through. You will also put in here your staff. Okay, so if, for example, Jeff here is going to be one of my staff that I'm going to be scheduling, I can go in and make that so. Again, obviously, you're going to have a bunch of staff who have logins to Therap, kind of your office staff, who aren't schedulable, which is actually a real word, believe it or not. So this makes sure they don't go showing up on the schedule or the calendar or anything like that by mistake. But I can open this up and I can say, yep, Jeff is schedulable. He's allowed to work 8 hours a day or 40 hours a week. And again, you can adjust that up or down if you like. And then you can say, what are the services that Jeff is eligible to provide? Okay, so you're going to get a list of all yours. So let's say Jeff was an RN, then I could say which of these nursing services he was eligible to provide. Or if that wasn't something, if he just did the personal care pieces, I could say he can do these. Okay, so again, you can decide for yourself who can provide which services. Okay, and save that there. When you get started, part of what we'll be doing is making sure that your account is pre-populated with the people that you provide services to, and we'll continue that sort of referral process that gets them assigned to your account. That will all take place in the background. You will be able to, though, add more various bits of more detail. So if you want to associate addresses and things like that with the person, you'll be able to go in here and do that. And I'll show you where that becomes useful in a minute. So now you've got your staff there and you've got your service authorizations. So now we're going to want to go in and we're going to want to schedule the staff to provide those services. So I can go to my agency tab, and this is where I'm going to see my scheduling module and the things I can do with that. Okay, so I can, first time I do this, I'm going to go to this create edit, and I'm going to be working in my in-home supports program, and there I can see all the people I provide services to in my in-home support. So I'm going to choose that, and then over on the next page is what I'm getting here is a list of all of my staff who are A, schedulable, and B, have at least one of those people on their caseload. Okay, that's where it's pulling the list of staff from. So I can say, okay. And when I do that, that brings me to my schedule. So this really is at the heart of how the whole sort of EVV piece is going to be. And again, I'm sure you all have somebody whose job it is to be the scheduler, or even multiple people whose jobs they are to be the scheduler, and this is where they will live. You can see I've already got a few slots on here, and I'll get to the different colors and things like that. I'm looking at it at a daily view at the moment, and I find this the easiest way to sort of create my schedule is to do it this way. I can either look at it by individual, or I could look at it by staff. So when I look at this, I can see I've got things, and then when I go over to the staff, I can see the only person doing any work is Justin. Okay, but that's always the case around here, so that's okay. So if I wanted to create another slot on here, let's say I wanted to schedule Jeff to do something, I can just come here, click, and drag for however long that person is going to work. It's already picked. You can see it's already picked Jeff down here because we did it in that role. Instead, what I'm going to do now is say, well, who is Jeff working with? We'll say it is Kimberly. Okay, and we know we're at the in-home supports program. And then I get here a list of the services that Kimberly is eligible to receive. So, and that is, in particular, in this case from Jeff, so that is personal care. The other thing that I can see is that so far today, she's had no units out of 16. She's supposed to get 16 units a day, and so far today, none of them have been scheduled. So, and that's just, the goal there is to try and give you information at your fingertips that's going to allow you to sort of fully utilize your service authorizations and not go over or under. Same, if I go and look at Jeff, it's gonna give me a sense of, for Jeff and for other people, how many hours are they working today and how many hours are they working this week. So again, I can make sure I hit my limits well there. So I'm going to stick with Jeff. And then I'm going to put an address in, okay, for where this service is going to be provided. Now that address, I'm going to get a few choices. At the moment, the only address the system knows for Kimberly is sort of the office address. If I put addresses on her demographic form, they would show up. I could choose this address, or if I just wanted to go and find one for myself, I can do that either by, let's say they were in Rapid City, so I'll put in Rapid City, and we'll go and find that, and there you go. I don't know why when you put in a city, they just have a random spot in it they pick, so we'll choose that one, and that's now going to be that location. And this is quite important. That little green, you see the little green map icon there? That says that Therap knows what the location is of that address, and that's actually its GPS coordinates there. And if I wanted to leave a note for my staff, like, you know, maybe if there was something special to be done when we went there, I could leave instructions here. If I could type. One of the nice things is your browser tends to come with spell check, so you can actually make sure you're doing things nicely. What I can do here, you'll notice I've got an option to either save this or approve it. If I just save it, what's going to happen is it will go in here and it will just be in that gray color, and that's visible to me as the scheduler, but not visible to anybody, you know, my staff who are out working. So if I want to sort of put together my whole schedule for the day or the week, but I don't want other people freaking out about it yet, I keep them there in that pending approval status, and then when I'm ready to approve the whole thing, I can do that, and folks are going to be able to see it. I can also, one of the things I can also do is, let's say I was going to have another service come in here, so I'm going to say, again, we'll say this is Homemaker, but let's say I don't have anybody to work this one yet, so I'm just going to pop that address, and again, we can see we know the location of that, so that's good. And I'm actually going to approve this, and you'll see that that one is colored pink. So it's really easy for me when I'm looking at my calendar or my schedule here to know which of those slots don't have any staff in them. And we'll get to in a little bit ways that your staff would be able to say, hey, I could work that, or ways that you could send out messages to your staff saying, hey, can anybody work this shift? We've got some of that sort of communication stuff going on in there. So that's that. The approved shift is the blue one. That means you're all done, and that's now showing up in the account of that member of staff. The green is, what the green one means is somebody has checked in and checked out of that slot. So basically, somebody worked that slot. And the orange one is a slot where somebody has checked in, but they haven't yet checked out. So you can imagine if you've got your full calendar here with all the people you support, sort of through the day as you're watching this, you're going to see all those shifts going from blue to orange to green, and you'll really be able to see what your staff are doing out there basically in real time. So if I open this up, because maybe I wonder why Justin hasn't finished yet, what I can see here is this was supposed to happen in Pierre, but I'm actually at a conference in Alexandria, Virginia, which is basically Washington, D.C. And so when I checked in just before I came on here, that's the location it showed. And if you're looking there and you're seeing an address, you can click on that little green icon, and you're going to get a map of exactly where that is. So again, very, very easy for you to know where your staff did that. Okay, close that off again. Now, what you can see here is that I didn't check out, and maybe I forgot to check out. Okay, and you're going to still want to be able to bill for this. I think in some of our conversations with folks in the state, they're still working out exactly what the rules are going to be for how do you deal with the fact that somebody forgot to check out, or somebody forgot to check in at the right time and checked in late, and you needed to go in and edit that. But you do have the ability to come in here and edit this to correct it. So if they got the times wrong and things like that. But remember that if you go and change this, so let's say I go in here and I'm going to change it not to the 14th, to the 7th, and it's going to be at 5 p.m. Then we can see that that's in there, but there's a little asterisk saying this has been edited by the scheduler, and we will store both what the original one was and what the edited version was. So again, there'll be a sort of a full history of that, so it can be audited, and you've got proof of who did what to it. All right. Okay, give me just. So what I would like to, I'm just taking a quick look at your list of questions. So couple of questions there, and there's good chance for me to go in and talk about those. If you would like to use this for folks other than the DD people, yeah, get in touch with us, and we can have a conversation with you about how that would work. So we would certainly, when Shirley or Jeff or Josh or Tracy call you to start talking about this stuff, we would be delighted to have that conversation. If the other question is sort of what happens if you need to change the schedule sort of either on the fly or in other ways, and there's a couple of scenarios for that we've got already, and there will be others we're sure come up that we have to learn to deal with. One is, if it is a service, in our experience elsewhere, is this often happens with something like respite, where it's not really that scheduled. It's maybe more almost self-directed. You will be able to say that a given service can be checked in for without having a schedule there first. Okay, so that will be an option, so that you don't need to do that. If and I think the example you gave was, let's say there's nursing was scheduled here from 2 to 3:45, but either the staff needed to change that because something came up in their world and they called the individual and they were okay with it, or the service recipient called and said, hey, can you change that? And again, that was all okay. Some of this is going to come down to your policy and how you want to deal with it. Your staff are able to check in for a slot, sort of 12 hours either side of it. So they can just go in and say, I know it says 3 to 4, but I'm going to check in from 1 to 2. You can have them do that. Or again, you can have somebody call, if somebody calls the schedule and says, hey, I just got a message from this person, they'd like that shift changed, it's really quick just to change the shift. Oh, no, because I need to open it up to do that one. Let's see. It's really quick just to come in, edit that, and say, you know what, instead of being from 2 to 3:45, it's going to be from 4 to 4:45. So they can do that, and as soon as they change that there, that is then going to change on anybody else's slot. So if they see it on their phone, that's going to change wherever they are. Again, I think that we're probably going to end up coming up with other sort of flexible options as we go along, but some of that's going to depend on the feedback that we get from you guys. What I'd like to do now, okay, is I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint, but this time I'm going to sort of walk through what that would look like for you on mobile device, because that is I think the ideal way for your staff to check in and out of this is to do it on a smartphone. Okay, that's the ideal world. We know there need to be other options, and I'm going to go through those other options as well. But the ideal is to do it on your smartphone. So I'm going to show you what that looks like in just a second. Right here. So as I say, we have an Android app and an iOS app. And your staff will log into that with the same login information they would have logged in on a desktop, and they can go to the scheduling or EVV place. When they get there, they're going to see just their schedule for the day. And if you're looking at this really closely, you'll see we've got those same colors that we have on the web piece. So that says, they've already worked these 2 shifts, they checked in for this one and haven't checked out, and they've got these other 2 waiting to come later in the day. So when they get somewhere and they're going to check in, they'll just tap on that particular day, and in they come. It's got the device is going to sense where it is. They hit the check-in button. It will take the first date and time stamp and location, and then when they check out, it's going to do the same. So that's two separate operations, and then obviously they could also leave a little note just saying what they did or why they were early or why they were late. They can leave that there. Again, very easy. Just basically, it's going to take 2 taps. 1 tap on the screen before, and then 1 on that checkout piece, and that's them done there. It will give them a little map of where they are. If for some reason, sometimes when you're in one street and your GPS takes the address from the wrong side of the building, you could write a little comment as to what that. Where that should be, okay, and that's that. So that would be again our preferred methodology for you doing the checking in and checking out. Now, We know that sometimes there are issues with what they call bring your own device. You know, are you okay with your staff accessing your system from a smartphone? Are your staff okay using their smartphone at work? May or may not be okay. Again, lots of questions around that, but those are sort of policy questions for you to come up with. And again, we're happy to tell you what we've seen elsewhere. But we are giving two alternatives to the checking in and checking out on the smartphone. The first of those is what we call IVR. And IVR is basically, let me just find here, there we go, is basically the calling in from a telephone. So if either you're calling in from, you know, if there's a landline there that you can call in from, or that service recipient, you know, their cell phone, as it were. Again, if you can come to, you'll have to come to an agreement as to what that known number is that you're going to call in from that's going to prove you were at that person's house. And again, it's a little bit, you can imagine what it's like. You call into our 800 number. It says, thank you for calling Therap EVV. Please enter your staff number. So you will have a staff number. You enter that in. You'll have chosen a PIN number. You'll enter that in. Then what we will give you is, for each shift that somebody is working, each slot on that calendar, it's going to have an ID number. So rather than having to say, yeah, I'm starting at this time, you can print out your schedule for the day or write it down, and you'll just enter in the ID number for that slot. Once you've got those, you can, as it were, press 1 to log in, or press 2 to check out, and you'll be all set. So you go in, you'd make a phone call at the beginning, a phone call at the end. Again, that'll work as long as, you know, the ideal there, as I say, is that there's a landline phone at your individual's location or otherwise. So that's option 2, and again, we'll come around and we'll demonstrate that to you when we're on site and we're doing things, but I think you can imagine pretty easily how that would work. Option 3, we really quite like, and that is our offline option, and it goes back to using a smart device, and this might even work for if you've got staff who are okay using their own phone, but they don't want you using their data. Again, this would use very, very little data. But if that were the case, then this would be an option for them. This would also be an option if you're providing some services somewhere where there isn't any cell phone or internet access. You know, no cell phone coverage or no internet access over that cell phone coverage. So what you would do is, while you are somewhere where you do have access, so you could be on Wi-Fi, so it's not running up any data or anything like that, you would log into your mobile app, again, either iOS or Android, and you'll see there's an option there for setting up offline mode. So you would do that, and again, you would put in your offline PIN number. So you would have a particular PIN number that you would use for offline use, okay? So once you've got that set up, then when you are going to collect data offline, what you would do is, when you got to the person's house, you would go to the offline login, okay? And in the offline login, you would put in your login name and your provider code, but instead of your password, this time you would put in that PIN number you checked. And then, because you're offline, we can't go and check where you're supposed to be and all of that stuff. So what you're going to do is that same slot ID number that you would have used if you were checking in over the phone, you'll use here, So you either type that number in, or we're going to end up giving you an option where you could download all your slots that you're going to work for the day in advance, so that they're just there. Again, it's going to capture your time when you check in. It's just going to capture the coordinates of the location. It's not going to be able to capture the address, because we're not able to go and look up Google Maps to see what the address are for those coordinates. But you can capture GPS coordinates while you're offline. So it will capture those and save them in here. As you can see, you can do a whole bunch of these while you're offline. Eventually, you're going to come back and go back online again. Oh, that's sorry. I talked you through that and didn't show you. That's just the checking in and checking out. Eventually, you're going to go somewhere. You could go to the library or to McDonald's, anywhere where there's Wi-Fi, and you could log in again. So you would log in properly, and then you'd go back to offline mode, and it's going to show you those things that were recorded offline but haven't been synced yet. So you go in, you get online, and from there you can sync those, and it's going to set them up, and they will interact with the calendar. Just you'll be able to tell that it was done offline, but it will show all those slots as being checked in and checked out. All right. So I'm going to go back to the list of questions, because I think when some folks have done ask questions, I think they're good ones for lots of people. So the question there about getting copies of these slides. Yeah, let me make sure we've got these all tidied up, and then we'll post them on the website, and we'll let them know. Let you know when they're out there. If you have somebody that you spend several hours with, can you schedule breaks in, or would you do multiple shifts? The moment we don't have breaks built into this, so if you were taking a break where you weren't getting paid, or you weren't going to bill for that, yeah, you would do it as as it were, 2 different slots with a little gap in the middle. In terms of the rounding and how the rounding will be done, that will be basically done however the state tells us to build the logic in. I think if I remember rightly, and again, we'll make sure this goes with whatever the MMIS says it should be, but it's usually sort of you round up to 15 minutes from 8 minutes. So if you worked 7 minutes of a 15-minute unit, you would round that down to no minutes. If you worked 8 or 9, then you'd round that up to 15. But again, we'll be making sure that we have those calculations built in, and they are the right ones for South Dakota. And we do a lot of that on the billing site. So it'll make those. And again, that's where you're going to want to come back and before you generate that billing data, you're going to want to run a report and make sure that everybody did check in and check out when they were supposed to, and you're able to go in and make edits, kind of like you would if any of you do electronic timesheets and things like that at the moment, kind of how you have to do before you run payroll. You have to do that editing there. The same thing would happen. All right, good questions. Question there about the sort of the tasks and all of that. At the moment, because what we're doing is a little bit of a rush to get you to the EVV piece, because we want to make sure that that's done and you're all really comfortable in using that well. So we're really focusing on that check in, check out. The tasks that are to be done while there, they will come. They'll sort of be in round 2 or 3 when we get to that. We've got really nice places for you to be able to capture that data and so that'll be available. One more thing just about the visit piece, and we haven't decided. This is again one of those things that we will define a little bit later on. But you will also have the option, if it is required, as it were, and I don't know if you guys do this at the moment. I get in-home services for my daughter, where I live in Connecticut, and whenever the nurse is there, we have to sign her timesheet. If there's some requirement for you either to get the individual or somebody at the home to sign off on the fact that you were there, as well as just you check in and check out, we will have that ability that you can sort of hold your device out for them and they can do a little finger signature, kind of like when you're buying a t-shirt at a concert. That'll be an option. We don't know if that's going to be required in South Dakota. There's some of the other states that we work in where that will be required. All right. Oh, going back here, and you'll notice that I get this warning here. If I sit around and don't use the application, there's a little timer and it'll log me out. So hopefully you're not leaving your system vulnerable to somebody else coming in and logging in. So what you can imagine then is you're going to end up with all of your EVV data gathered here. At some stage, you're going to say, okay, now I want to bill for this. Okay, and I'm just going to kind of walk you through this fairly verbally at the moment, and when we're a bit closer on some of the development stuff we'll come back and we'll do another webinar going into detail on that. But basically, it's a sort of a three-step piece that you'll do. The first step is you're going to say, okay, I want to generate. I want to bill for either this week or this 2 weeks. It's really up to you how often you bill, unless there are rules on the state staff where they state in that they say you can only bill once every 2 weeks or once a month. But it's just up to you. So you're going to say, okay, so now for, let's say I'll say it's the month of October. You know, we've done all of our October stuff, checked it all. It's all there. I'm ready to go. What I'm going to say is I want to generate billing data from all of my slots. So the system is then going to go through all the slots that are there in October, and is going to end up generating what we call billing data. And that is just really how many units of that service were provided. Okay, once you've done that, you've now got the data that you need to put together a claim and send that claim off. So again, very, very quick process of just say for this service, I wanna bill, put together claims for everybody who received the service during October, because I've got the billing data there. It will scoop it up. We'll create that claim, and you send the claim off. Again, you don't need to worry, is that an MMIS claim or is that a state accounting claim, because we're gonna send them off to the right places, and then basically at that rate you will get paid, or if there was some reason you weren't getting paid, you will get back through the system that adjudication that gives you the reason why you weren't paid or why you were partially paid. We know that works well on the MMIS side in South Dakota, because we do it with the conflict-free case managers on the DD side. Again, I'm not exactly sure how much feedback you'll get on the state accounting piece, because I'm not sure they're going to give us that back, but we'll find out as we go through, and whatever they let us know, we'll let you know, and that will all be available to you here within Therap. Let me just take a little look at the time here. Okay. And we've got sort of 20 minutes to go. There are a few other little bits and pieces of functionality that I can show you if we need to. This is also a really, really good time. If you had a question that's floating around that you want to get answered, this is a great time to be asking that question. And again, if I'm giving answers here and anybody from LTSS thinks I didn't quite get it right, please do feel free to jump in and correct me. We have a bunch of other functionality in the system. You know, we are a full sort of case management and service documentation system, and we will again gradually, as we work out what makes the most sense for you folks to be using, we will roll that out and teach you how to use that, and that will be available. So if you already have an EVV provider, my understanding is that at least to start off with, the state is going to be okay with you doing your EVV through that provider, but you will need to do your data collection, your billing through Therap. So what we will give you is, rather than us going and scraping that EVV to get the billing data to be able to generate the claim, we will give you another mechanism for entering in what that data is that then the claim needs to be taken from. So that's sort of the process that we're seeing there. And again, we'll come back to you with more webinars as we get closer to that. What we're hoping to do in terms of timelines is to start this with a pilot with a few agencies sort of in the first quarter of next year, so we can iron out any last minute bugs that there are, and then roll it out from there across everybody else. Again, if you're interested in being one of those pilot providers, please do sort of reach out to the folks at LTSS or reach out to us and let us know. We'd be delighted to talk to you. There's a few things that we haven't quite nailed down, so to be able to put an exact date on when that's going to be is not quite possible yet, because we haven't quite got those full requirements yet. But we and the LTSS folks are working hard at it to get there. In terms of interfacing with other apps, not at the moment. So we don't out the bat have the ability. You know, I know a lot of you use, I think it's ClearCare. That's right. I don't know if you can. You're not going to be able to automatically import that data from there into Therap. Again, as things move along, and that may be something that happens in the future. I can't commit one way or the other. Question here about, is there a concern about having patient information on our staff's cell phones? To some, that data that your staff is accessing is never unencrypted on their phone, so it doesn't get left there in a manner that it could be exposed. So it's certainly, our applications meet all the HIPAA requirements for doing this. I think you need to make your own sort of policy judgment on, do you want them doing that on their device, or would you rather them doing it on your device? And it's, I think it's almost the biggest challenge that we're seeing out there at the moment as we talk to folks around the country about how not only EVV works, but just mobile working in general. We have a whole suite of mobile apps that go along with our application, and a lot of agencies just haven't quite worked out what it is that they want to do. You do get, they call it MDM, mobile device management software, that you can use if you want to install something on your staff's phone to to manage that data even more while it's there. I think that's even more intrusive. I'm not sure I'd want somebody doing that to me. Again, I would encourage you to as it were, you know, think about it, read up about it, and come up with a solution that works best for you. And again, it's why we're trying to offer a number of solutions. But there is no doubt that the mobile app is the best way to go in terms of the easiest way to collect the best data. We're probably not going to be, there's a question there from, was it going to be mandatory implementation on 1/1/19? We're probably not going to be ready for that statewide. Originally, the feds had said it had to be done by 1/1/19. That date got put back by a year from the feds. We will get there as quickly as we can. Again, there's a number of challenges that we're addressing, and some of that is to do with we're trying to make sure that the transition from some of the existing systems to Therap goes as well. So there's as little sort of retyping stuff and all that goes on, and there's interfacing that needs to be done and stuff like that. So don't have an exact time yet, but we will let you know as soon as we can. Okay, a question there that says, my understanding is that all the consumers will be entered automatically by the LTSS caseworker, but agency employees should be entered by the provider administrator in order to assign the schedule. Is that correct? Yes, that is exactly correct. You will, you will choose for your agency one or more, and that's what we call them, is provider administrators, who will get this admin tab. And one of the things you will do on this admin tab is this is where you will go in and you will create your staff. So you can go in and say that John Smith, whose initials are JS and whose login name is going to be J Smith, and you might make him a temporary password for that, and he'll be asked to change that the first time he logs on. And you will have defined the list of titles that you have in your office. So that's it. If you want to track his hire date, you can put it in. So that creates John. You can put a little bit more information about him in there if you want to. You are then going to assign privileges, and this is a little bit about, if you remember right back at the beginning, talked about caseloads and things like this. So this is where I could say that John works with everybody in the in-home supports division, so I'm going to add that caseload to him. And it's going to take a while because I'm on a really slow internet connection here at my hotel. And then I'm going to say what is his role within the organization. So and from there, let me just get control panels in the way. There we go. And what is his super role? And he is doing LTSS. So that's the name of that collection of capabilities. So that then defines what can John do and who can you do it with. Now, sometimes you might get somebody who has more than one sort of role. Yeah, sometimes they work one place, sometimes they work somewhere else, and you can actually give them different profiles so they can look at one group with one set of privileges and another group with another set. Again, we will walk you through doing all that stuff as we go through, and then there are some other capabilities. If they've got some admin things that you want them doing, you can set them up with those. So it's very flexible, but again, this is something that we will train you all in doing, so you really don't need to worry about it all too much just now. All right, Let me get back to my list of questions here. So question there, if the state does not require a signature from the client at the end of the visit, but you as an agency would like to require that, can you do so? The answer to that, in my view, would be yes, you could. I would want to run that by the folks at LTSS, and it's not a conversation that we do. But the answer to that would be, I think, would most likely be yes. Can the app be used for other payers? And the answer is yes. Yes, it can. There would be a fee associated with that for you. It's not a huge fee, but we'd be happy to have that conversation with you. Question there, can you enter in wages for each employee to help with payroll? What you can do is we will give you a report in your report library, so you could get by staff their start and end times and the number of hours that they work, so you could import that into your payroll program. So yes, we could absolutely doing that. And yeah, Jennifer, if you've got questions about that, just get in touch with us, and we'd be happy to have a conversation about that.
Justin, two other questions that are a little bit above is, one, can we still use a clearinghouse to submit claims?
And again, I'm answering this, which is sort of a policy question, so the state folks can contradict me. I believe at the moment the answer to that is going to be no. One of the points of this project is to have all this data in one place so that we can be more efficient with utilization and forecasting and all of that stuff. So that's going to require, you want all those claims coming through Therap and going out. So I suspect the answer to the clearinghouse piece is no. Again, for anything that you're doing in Therap related to your LTSS folks, there is absolutely no charge. So we're not going to be charging you for anything for submitting these claims or anything like that.
And then the other question is, can the caregiver clock in and out from the client's mobile phone if there is no landline? Many of our clients don't have landlines anymore, and many of our caregivers don't have smartphones.
Yep, I believe, again, it's going to be a little bit of a policy thing and a little bit of almost an emerging thing as we go through, and that's why we want to get started well in advance of where this requirement piece comes at the end of next year, so we can work out some of those things. But yeah, I don't see what the alternative is in that scenario. And the way that it would work from the application perspective is in the slot, as well as putting that geolocation, the address of where the service would be provided, you'll also put the phone number in that it's expected to be called in from. So that's where you would put in that person's cell phone number. And again, at the moment, what you've got to be prepared for is, as it were, that data that you're recording is open to audit. So you've got to be able to justify, because I had this phone number, that is that person's cell phone number, therefore that's okay. You've kind of got to be able to come up with a good argument that says, yes, this does prove that I did that. We're working with the folks in the Medicaid office. The feds have been very vague on this stuff. I mean, there was another national phone call actually this afternoon on the whole EVV. So a lot of it, there's a lot of sort of, how do you deal with this going on out there? So I think some of it, you're going to have to kind of bear with us, and it'll evolve as we go along. One of the questions I think we're trying to answer is, does there have to be, as it were, an option of last resort where, you scribble something down on a piece of paper and you get the person to sign it to say you were actually there, and then we would give you an option to scan that into the system, so you had that as your proof that you did actually provide that service. And again, that's what all this is about is making sure that your staff are actually there when they said they were there. Tracy, were there other ones that I forgot?
No, those were the only two.
Excellent. Well, that time has sort of flown by. Hopefully that was helpful and useful to you. Again, we are in the process of reaching out to all of you, so we know who it is to contact when it's time to get you set up and all of that. If you have any questions at all at any time, do please reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you, or reach out through the LTSS folks. And again, we will be having more of these as we get closer and closer to having our defined actual rollout, and then ongoing after that, we will be doing both training and support calls, and we will be available to provide support to you. So thank you again all very, very much. We really appreciate your time, and we are real excited about getting this and making this work for you. Thank you. You folks have a great day.